Hello all, you're all welcome, and I'm going to be today talking about our source protection efforts at Stranooden Group Water Scheme. To give a bit of context, Stranooden Group Water Scheme is in Monaghan. We take our water from a surface water catchment, basically a lake system called the Dromore River system, which is about 9 kilometres away from the treatment plant. But we have 1,800 connections, and I understand from this morning's conversation that's a pretty big scheme, So I suppose we've been at source protection for the last, since 2019. We were the surface water aspect of the pilot project to improve water at source, so it was the groundwater element in Roscommon and Mayo, and in Monaghan we had the source protection. I once heard that for every euro spent at source protection, at improving the source, you save €9 in treatment costs. I don't know where I got that quote from, but as a source protection officer, I would be advocating that for sure. I'm not going to talk too much about the source protection project that we have done, except to acknowledge that the Department of Housing and Local Government gave us an awful lot of money to do an awful lot of work, and we're very grateful for that, because what that has done has encouraged Stranooden Group Water Scheme to take on a source protection officer all the time, and I am dedicated. I'm probably the only dedicated source protection officer working on the one catchment. We have a lot of information on the kind of measures that we did, and we have a lot of measures in here, and we have a report that's available on our website if you go to the source protection part. I'm also on videos and stuff talking about source protection and all that, and that's all there, so you can look at that. I'm kind of going to be talking about the nuances of what I do on a now and going forward or whatever, So the catchment, we hear this term an awful lot, and I find we can't assume that everybody knows what a catchment is. A catchment basically is the land area that drains into your drain, your stream, your river, or your lake, or your borehole. On a groundwater context. So we have to know where our catchment is to be able to put in source protection measures, because we can see where the hazards are, whether they be rural and urban. In our catchment, we have 129 kilometres squared. Okay, so it's a very big catchment. Roisin alluded to it earlier. We've got pressures both from rural and urban pressures. So I suppose it's important to why were we picked for the source protection project. We got basically we had pesticide exceedances, and our two issues were with pesticides and with phosphates. Our soils and the kind of land that we have, drumlin landscapes in Monaghan, and the poorly draining soils and the drumlins means that we're very susceptible to phosphates and pesticide runoff. So sampling is essential in any source protection plan. You find out what the problem is and where the problem is. Okay? I suppose we had an awful lot of that work done in the source protection project, and we've pinned it down. We've 5 sub-catchments in our area, and we've pinned it down to one that was contributing the most in regards pesticide exceedances and phosphates issues, So we kind of picked that to be working on. There's a couple of sampling methods that we do. Obviously, going to the lab. As we've developed, we're doing much more in-house. So our sampling bill this year would be half what it was, but we wouldn't have been able to scale that back unless we knew where the problem was, and we were able to do that over time, But this method of sampling in small streams, the small streams are the capillaries of any river. If you get the small streams right, you have a good idea that the river is going to be good, And there's some very good guidance on citizen science with regards looking at the insects in a stream and finding out how healthy the water is. The more variety of aqua invertebrates that you have in that, the better your water. So the trick is to have streams that have loads of different types of aqua invertebrates. With the schools, I go to the schools every year, and we're all the time, we can impress on them good and bad water by looking at the insects. If we can do that at school at 9, 10 years of age, we can certainly do it as group water schemes as well. It's a cheap and easy way to find out how good or bad your streams are with tick sampling. Certainly from a source water perspective. Communications is everything in source protection as far as I'm concerned. Visibility as well. We're non-regulatory, so we are. The likes of us going around in a marked van, whether it be for sampling or whether it be for engagement with community groups or with farmers or whoever else, it's important that they know you're not a regulator, so you have an awful lot more buy-in. Well, that's something certainly I experienced, or we experienced in Stranooden Group Water Scheme. The group sessions are good and probably essential maybe at the start, but that one-to-one, getting beyond the cattle grid is massive, so it is. When you're talking to a farmer on a one-to-one basis, then you get down to the nitty-gritties of what he and she can offer you with regard to source protection. Whilst farmers are mentioned an awful lot in source protection, they are a part of the problem, there's no doubt about that, but they're a massive part of the solution too. So engagement with this cohort is essential, so it is. But I suppose we can't just be focusing on the farm community, because us as humans, all we do, in what we do in our daily lives, it does have an impact on the environment around us. And for that, we would also be engaging with homeowners and industry as well. We engage with abbots who also have a lot of skin in the game, in that they're in the same river catchment and take water from the particular river. So they were partners with us with a desludging initiative that we did in one particular sub-catchment that I'll talk more about later. And this gave us a chance to go to the homes of a particular sub-catchment, and we had 61 houses there. We desludged 46 of them that took up with it. There was derelict houses and farmers that didn't need it, but it was actually, it was fascinating or worrying how many of those septic tanks didn't work, and we're still working on that project, and we're going to keep developing on it, because it's no point in finding out where the problems are if you don't have a solution, and we're working on that. But it was great to get in there and get that investment from industry, and obviously you're able to, it gives you a chance to engage with homeowners and that, and that's vitally important, because they're involved, they're in the conversations too, especially with pesticides. MCPA was the particular pesticide that we were having issues with and that might mean an awful lot to a lot of people, but MCPA basically is a pesticide that targets all the plants except the grass. So it's very beneficial for somebody that's doing sports recreation grasses, or somebody that wants the pristine garden, or a farmer that wants Italian ryegrass and nothing else or whatever. So it's used quite a bit. There's something like 48 products of this currently available, and there's as much of that available to the domestic market as it is the farming market. So I suppose we all have to be aware of that when looking at pesticide exceedances, because pesticides is something that we can't deal with on a treatment level. Everything else we can, So when this gets into the water in any water treatment plant in the Republic, we can't deal with it. We do not have the technology or the infrastructure to deal with it. They do in the north, because they recognise that it's a big problem, and it's something that we're all the time engaging with both farmers and homeowners about the hazards of MCPA. The next generation is very important too. We've 10 schools in our catchment. Every year we go to them. this year Dundalk with the Water Heroes H2O project, because we do quite a bit of liaison with them. They went to all our schools and had a blast, and that's all about getting to know invertebrates and getting them engaged, because that generation can have a big influence on the families at home, and maybe there's something going on there, and they can educate them. It's all about water awareness, water quality, and how to protect it, like, because it's theirs for the future, like, you know. Part of our project and legacy has also been getting a river trust going in the Dromore River catchment. I don't know whether you noticed I had a stand outside, and we're currently doing a Dromore mapping project. I'm not going to go into too much detail about that, but being able to set up a river trust and getting people actually engaged in your waters is a fantastic opportunity to involve the whole community, because we cannot just focus on one aspect of a community to protect the water. That particular river trust, we've something like 40 members, and we do cleanups, and we do tree planting, and obviously the mapping project is a big project, like, you know. So we're excited about that, and isn't it great to get people involved and interested in the river system? The pilot project, and Roisin alluded to this earlier, we have one stream in our 8 tributaries that are particularly poor. We have one stream, and it's 5 kilometres, and it's offering 60% of the phosphates. Okay, now we can focus. If it's a 5 kilometre stream, well then, it's actually 10 kilometres, because there's 2 sides to every stream. So that's what you have to deal with, like, you know, and that's what we are dealing with. And the first thing I did was every week I take phosphate samples at 6 different. Phosphates is the issue on this particular stream, and I take 6 every week to find out where the problems are, like, you know. So, and the funny thing about this one particular sub-catchment is that the left side, SW01, we've extensive farmers there, and on SW03 we have intensive farmers there. And the results from 03 are much better than 01, which just shows you that the extensive farmer can cause an awful lot of damage if he's doing particularly poor practices, like, you know. And I'm not saying that 03 is great either, but it's much better than the other side. But that just gives you an insight into every sub-catchment, or every river, or every stream. It tells its own story. So, we're using the pip maps when we go to farmers, and we've engaged, like, this is an ongoing project, obviously, and we're using our own resources at this stage, and we're putting in fencing and the divil and all, like, you know, but we're using the pip maps to identify where the flow paths are, and these might seem complicated, but it's readily available to every group water scheme or whatever, and I'd recommend that if you know where there's a problem, get this and talk to the farmer, and the farmer's very good at giving you information of where problems may be as well. Like, you know, I'm probably going to have to hurry up because I'm talking a lot. Okay, smart buffer zones. This is putting the right measure. When water comes off a field or whatever, it doesn't come off in uniform. It comes off at one particular spot or 2 particular spots. Getting more depth at those spots is key. And I find when you're showing a map to a farmer, he mightn't give you that ground, but when you're out there and you're looking to straighten lines and straighten fence, and it makes sense for them to have a straight line and a straight fence, because it's going to last an awful lot longer. And another thing that we do, I suppose, as a source protection advocates, is we look after the fence afterwards. So that means that we're making sure that the fence is kept livestock proof, and the particular planting, whether it be hedging, whether it be willow or woodlands or whatever, we make sure that everything's going as planned, because we're invested in this, like, you know. This is one particular farmer, and it was fantastic. We got a hectare of native tree scheme, and we got a couple of reed bed ponds. This was something that we hadn't done up until this year, and this is fantastic because this kind of holds back the water, and then you plant it up with plants that will take up phosphates, and we're really looking forward to seeing the results from this going forward, like, you know. And this is another one. This guy wasn't willing to give us that section there that you're seeing, the particularly wide section, he wasn't willing to give us that for woodlands, but we got a line of willow trees planted in there. So we're happy enough that it's a particularly wet area, so it is. And we had to put in a solar drinker as well because his livestock was using the river and one thing and another. So it was important that he had an alternative. And it is about working out what works for the farmer and what works for us. And there is a lot of negotiating and table thumping and one thing and another, but we get there in the end. Normally, like most farmers will engage with you. Most farmers want to see the water improve. They're drinking it. Okay, and I suppose where we are now, we've 15 kilometres of fencing done. We've got 6.335 kilometres of hedgerow. We've bank of roads. They're all nature-based solutions, and I suppose that's important because the Resi River, it's a trans-European project that's going on that's looking at nature-based solutions for protecting water, and we were actually showcased as the leading in Ireland. We were the example or whatever. The Dromore River system was actually pretty high up there on how they rated us, so we were happy with that. Okay, I think that's it.